Here. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the show, Magic, Healing, and Manifestation. I am welcoming a longtime colleague, friend, and amazing coach into the space again with me. Today I have Karlita. Karlita, welcome. You are divine right now.
Thank you, Nicki. I am feeling it. It's
So
really
for the
good to be
people
with you
who
too.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm excited about this conversation we're going to have today because it is so on point. Um, but,
You-
but before we get into the juicy details, for the people who don't know who you are, can you tell us a little bit about you and and what you do?
Okay, great. Hi, I'm Karlita Neighbors Palermo. I basically I call myself a love coach, but really I'm helping women to create a healthy relationships with themselves as the basis for everything. Because after lots and lots and lots of trying the wrong things, frankly, lots of personal growth, starting businesses, like all kinds of stuff like this, but like really not finding the thing I wanted most, which was like relationship and feeling good and confident in my life, and like really on a deep level, still feeling unworthy. I was like, this is what has to get handled. And when I finally got that, that was the thing. So really, I help people create the healed relationship with themselves, which, as we'll talk about, is truly the basis of everything else that becomes possible in life. Like it's got to be an inside job. It's not what you think it is.
Mm,
Not working.
I would like every hero has an origin story. So I want to hear your origin story. Like, what got you into this? And at what point did you realize, like, oh my God, this is life changing?
Well, I always was drawn to spiritual work and psychology and things like that. And I've been doing, like, I started off doing astrology readings after studying astrology for 20 years. And then I brought in Akashic record stuff. And then it was just like, well, let's do coaching so that we can help people actually live the insights that are coming from these kind of esoteric diagnostic tools. Um, but to actually start to focus in the love space was really edgy for me because I didn't feel like I understood it yet, but it was really an ongoing part of my own journey. Uh, to support women, who were working on the same things I had worked on. And now I understand it all. So when I was a younger person, I felt completely unworthy of love. I got lots of strong messages that my body was too fat and I was not sexy and I was not attractive. I mean, I was really treated badly. I was just thinking about that on my walk this morning. I was like, God, those assholes. Like, people were actually, it was funny. People, like, men would like make comments to each other about my looks right in front of me as if I weren't even there.
Mm,
It was so painful. And so it was really hard for me to embrace myself as a desirable and attractive woman. Even when it was coming at me, I couldn't believe it, because no amount of quote proof is ever enough when you really don't know your attractiveness and your worthiness. Like, you are actually a bottomless pit for reassurance and need to hear the words again. And if you don't hear from somebody for so many days, or things don't go according to your fantasy, like, you go back to the default of like, oh, they must not be attracted to me, or I'm not, good enough, or I offended them, or I mean, like, all this stuff. Like, there's actually no amount of proof that's enough. And I just struggled with that for so long, and I could not find the love that I so wanted in my life. And I was just lonely in a lot of ways. And I had friends and, like, a lot of people who really appreciated me in my life, but on a certain level, like, there just was not the level of satisfaction that I knew was possible, both in dating and in, like, the rest of my life. And it's all completely flipped now. And, like, it's funny, you gave me such a lovely compliment before we started talking. You're like, oh, you like just radiating sexiness. And I was like, yeah, I am now. And, like, I experience that wherever I go. And it's shocking to me, like, really, to look at the difference, because, like, I really always thought it was about something external, and it's totally what I radiate. It's completely that. My body's not different. I'm not thinner than I ever was. Like it's not about that at all. And yet, like, everywhere I go, it's just like I get evidence of my appeal. It's reflected back to me in whoever I find most attractive in any space. Like, invariably, like, that's the person that, like, is, like, trying to find out if he can get my number, or help.
oh,
And it's so funny. I saw a story, like, I was telling you, I had a story about it, because, like, last week I was on a social bike ride in my city, And I was going to climb a tree at one of our stops. I saw this amazing tree to climb. I was like, ooh, I'm going to get that tree. Well, I couldn't, like the lowest branch, like I was not managing to get myself up in that tree. So the guy that I had noticed earlier as like the hottest guy on the ride, just superficially, like I didn't actually know if I cared about him or not, which is another total reorientation. It's not like I was needing that guy to validate my attractiveness by getting him to like me or anything like that. It was just like I just noticed he was a really good looking guy. And so next
Yeah.
thing, this good looking guy is like insisting that I allow him to help me up into the tree. So of course I did. Like, I mean, I really was enjoying that. We had a nice little connection, nice little enjoyment. But I could also tell like I didn't actually like feel a connection with him. He wasn't a person operating on the level of consciousness that I really like to connect with. No, nothing against him, but like it was just a superficial like appreciation of like the hot guy and like getting to have this like zingy kind of like being helped up into the tree by him. Later, like a few days later, I'm talking with a girlfriend of mine who'd been on the same bike ride. And she talks about how whenever she like, so she looks right at him early on in the ride and announces a singles ride that we were going to be hosting later. And she says he immediately looked away the second she made eye contact with him in that way and mentioned singles ride. And she felt so shunned and rejected just in that moment. And I was like, God, that used to be me. That
Mm.
like it was so wild to see that version of myself and have that hear back to me, like this person who's so similar to what I used to experience, experienced exactly what I experienced with the exact same man who was insisting that I allow him haul my heavy ass up into this tree. You know what I mean? Like completely different experiences, but it that like hers was mine, hers used to be mine. You see the guy that like you think is attractive, you feel the need to be validated by getting validated back with him, you like you go for it because you've attached to something unconsciously about that person,
Yes.
and you experience the reverb of that, which is getting the experience of rejection, because that's what you're actually looking for unconsciously is so it gets reflected back to you what's actually going on. And I was like, God, that used to be my exact experience, and it would make me feel so ashamed and so rejected and so unworthy, and like it's just energy and awareness, completely different experiences you know
I completely resonate with where you come from because like I remember my journey actually started with not in love but in wanting success, and because I felt so inadequate, I was chasing something outside of myself. So I was like, this 9 to 5 job is not good enough, and I really wanted something more, and it was that like external seeking that kept me going, but that cycle of emptiness that I felt within just never stopped. And eventually it branched out into like all different areas of my life, right? I had a really healthy, loving relationship. Like my husband, he's the kindest, most gentle, most understanding, most accepting man ever. And here I was chasing some like toxic guy that was emotionally unavailable, the typical bad guy that's like flirting with all the girls. And I was like, I want a piece of that. Like, who thinks of that, right? But it was that sense of like insecurity within me that just having a little bit of attention outside of myself would be like, oh, next experience, oh, next experience. And I think it was that downfall that led me to the healing work, because at some point, people start leaving your life when the vibration no longer matches. And here I was really trying to become a coach, like every level I kept stepping up. And this I would say like this karmic relationship, because he taught me a lot about myself, about
the
where I
bad
was
guy.
insecure, like the toxic relationship, right? And where I was insecure, every time I didn't get my needs met, I would have to meet my own needs. But then I would go back, and that cycle just never stopped. And it was through the final release, he was like, all right, I can't do this anymore. I gotta go. And obviously, my delusional self is like, why are you abandoning me? I thought you loved me, right? And here's my loving husband, like right here, right here, right here. And it was a really shameful moment. I had to admit, like, I thought there was nothing wrong chasing this other guy. I thought there was nothing wrong, like striving and working so hard in my business and not seeing any returns. And it stemmed from a place of emptiness, right? It stemmed from that place. Shifting to the other side, which you had mentioned, doing the inner work, doing the healing, I felt whole and complete, and creating from that space feels so different. And I want to hear your experience of how that shifted in your life.
I love what you were mentioning there because it's a metaphor for everything we want to create. But it's like I was just telling my audience this past week, like whenever you've actually done that inner work, that unavailable toxic person who doesn't have their own life together and is emotionally unavailable and all this kind of stuff, like no judgment against them, but like they are not even appealing anymore. That's why I was saying, like, the guy who pulled me up under the tree, like just, hot guy, I couldn't have cared less. Like it
Yeah.
was just, but like but like unavailability or people who can't meet you like where you are sitting back and evaluating things, from a place of fullness. I mean, they are not at all romantically appealing anymore. There is no appeal for the unavailable. Unrequited love doesn't happen because how could like someone who doesn't like see and feel attracted to me, like how, like why would I want that? Like what could possibly be appealing about someone who's not totally into me? Like like no way. And then also it's not just like trying to talk myself out of it too. It's also just having this experience of abundance everywhere I go. There are multiple beautiful men in my sphere now. And it's just like, wow, a part of me is actually, it's so funny, but part of me is starting to feel like, oh, let's just milk this period of singleness like for like as much as I can because like like it's so sweet and it's so fun and I'm so enjoying the moment. And it's like, yeah, this is gonna end at some point. And like this is actually got its own kind of fun. And I never felt that way before. Like most people who come to me, they're like, just get me out of this. Like I just I just want a boyfriend. Just pull me out of like the heartache of not having my girlfriend or my boyfriend around. And it's just like you're not even aiming high enough. You don't even know, you're not asking for enough of your life. You're not asking
Mhm.
for enough. It's like aim for the stars, like go for like that it's really, and aiming for the stars is going for the healing within that knows like knows your own worth on such a deep level that you're not attracted to anything but like healthy people who see you and appreciate you and can listen to you and be present for you. Like that shit is hot. That is hot. Like, the people who are actually available and mature and awesome and like see you,
Yeah.
that is a whole different kind of hot that you ain't experienced yet if your unworthiness stuff has been in the way. And it applies to all other life areas as well. Like I just happen to be working in like the love field for the most part. But the way things actually shift, it's like you do the work, you do the inner work, and it's going to take the time that it's going to take for different people. But like what happens is you actually have to take action. You cannot just be getting all the downloads and thinking about it and then continuing to get the steps that are going to be your next steps forward. You have to actually be taking action and letting it be quote imperfect, and moving on the little tidbits that you get. I was just talking to some people last night in a workshop about dating and how to tell like if someone else is attracted to you and how to know and like what are like the signals of attraction. I was telling the people there, I was like, you have to be willing to like go out and let it be wrong. You don't just think your way into this. Like you get out into the world and let yourself experience what it's like to just have a smile with that, attractive woman in the grocery store and just experience the energy of it. It's not attached. It's just let yourself enjoy the experience of connection. It's not about going out and nailing it with all of your like having all those skills down pat from the get-go. But a lot of people want to sit back and just think that they can think their way into it. But here's how divine guidance actually works. You go out and you take the action steps that you have received from divine guidance already, and then the next one can come because that's the language of this realm, is actually taking action. Nothing changes when we just think and hope and like do some stuff in here. You actually have to go out and make a move on it, and then it gets refined, and then you see, oh, how did that go? And you don't have to judge yourself. People will judge themselves, but you don't
Yeah.
have to judge yourself. You're gonna be like, oh, what happened? That kind of changed the energy there. But you went out and experienced something, and your experience brought you a new understanding of how these things works. It brought you an embodiment of the energetic shift of the upgrade, and then you quote qualify for the next level of divine guidance. But you cannot just sit there listening to things and reading. Like you have to actually go out and do the thing. You have to actually do, and whether it's like doing your emotional healing work and really confronting the lies in a deep, deep way, or if it's going out and actually going on dates, whatever might be appropriate for a person's phase. But I know a lot of people who think that they can address their limiting beliefs by just thinking a new thought. And it's like, That's not how they work. They are anchored in there by much deeper mechanisms. That's how they stay in place. You don't just think, oh, I saw that limiting belief, now I'm going to think a new thought. Like, that's not generally how it works. You have to commit yourself to actually pulling that apart and going in and really whatever's your guidance to move in on it, like actually shifting things. But if you're not seeing results in your outer life or in your emotional experience, if you're still attracting the same type of partner that you don't actually want to attract anymore, someone unavailable, if you don't want to be having the same types of dynamics, like your attachment style is painful for you, or or it's an like just not a fulfilling relationship, you're dating somebody who's unavailable, or if you're continuing to feel unpleasant emotional, anxiety around relationships or whatever, you haven't actually shifted it. So the most important thing is to just go out there and get on it because time's a wasted. But move on it.
Now, that resonates at such a visceral level because I remember doing the healing work, and there came a point where I felt so good within myself. And then there was a stop. And that stop was, well, great. You feel great about yourself. Now what? And then I had to sit with that because I was doing healing for like 6 months after everything, after accepting the failure of my business, after accepting that I felt abandoned and alone. And where was all of these inadequate feelings coming from in the first place? And for those 6 months of healing, loving, accepting, nurturing the inner child, I came to a point where I built up the confidence again through like human design. I read about human design through astrology. I read about myself through astrology. And I was like internally just connecting to these energies that said like, you are confident, you are attractive. And there were certain things that just validated me. But then after those 6 months, I had quit coaching, and I was like, so what comes next? Like, what happens now? And I realized I couldn't just sit in these happy-go-lucky feelings because life is happening outside of me. Life is not happening inside of me all the time. So then I had to make the really difficult decision, like, I have a dream and I'm going to continue to pursue my dream. And I had to put my big girl pants on, and I had to go and hire a coach because I was like, I'm too scared to do this alone. I'm going to go hire a coach who's going to help me through. But you're absolutely right. Like, there is a moment to heal, to do the inner work, to really recognize and nurture yourself. But then life happens outside of you. Like, life doesn't happen just sitting at home all the time.
And the healing continues to happen out in the world too. This is one of the good news pieces of it is you are constantly, here's why you have to go out and live it, is you are constantly getting reflected back to you in what you manifest in your outer experience, what has actually shifted or not on the inside. Because it's easy for me to like stay in my happy place when I'm alone and not actually encountering people, but when I go out in the world and experience people responding to me, whenever I get online and people might not like what I say, whenever I go out into the world where I'm hoping people will like me, whatever it might be, that's when you're actually going to be encountering what is still there and seeing how deep it is. Because it's, in the bubble, it's easy to get into your imagination and feel good. You can generate good feelings anytime you want to, but when you go out into those situations that you're wanting to actually have a new experience inside of, that's where you get the feedback of where things are, and you can shift it in the moment. I've watched myself do it. And so, not to give anybody an idea of perfection, like there continue to be layers. It's just that you reach a point where you've reached a threshold and enough has shifted and you've removed enough of the shadow. It's really hard to manifest the way we're all taught to manifest when we still have these beliefs like on a subconscious level that are blocking us from our own light. Your light is incredibly powerful and will draw everything that you desire to you. But whenever we have these stories that are in the way, those need to be cleared, and you need to be willing to see what it is and work with it. But there's still going to be like always layers of it to work with. So, I'll catch myself in the moment these days. I noticed one time recently, I walked into a class a little bit late, and I saw myself projecting, like my inner critic is totally a man, right? And I saw myself projecting my inner critic onto the male teacher, and like just like, with this voice coming in like saying I was a late slob for showing up late and all this kind of stuff. And I saw it at the moment, was like, oh fuck that. Like that is not what I choose to experience now. I caught it and I saw it, and I've done enough work that it's easy to like see the absurdity of it now. Like really
Yeah.
deeply in the moment, in the situation, see, oh, that's absurd, which is how that like it might still be there, but it's loose enough to work with. And I chose a new experience in that moment and was like, I don't know what that person is thinking. And if that person is judging me for being late, that's not my problem. That's nothing about me. I'm wonderful and I know it. And I'm just going to get back into my juicy feeling. And then that person, I had like an amazing connection after the class. I was like it was just like I felt so seen like immediately by this person. And we just had this lovely connection. And I was just like, I was totally projecting all this garbage onto this man, like not even, we don't assume the best might be happening, you know what I mean? But to catch it in the moment. So it's still there. There's still like, oh, I have a judgment around like lateness. Like that's that my hyper responsibility type A side, that I've been working with a lot more intensively lately. But it's just like you really do gain more of the power to catch yourself and choose in the moment, because you are not in the thrall of the old garbage stories about yourself that are really running the show deep down. And you know it if your life is not on the outside what you desire for it to be. So, but real life is how you get out there and test it and actually work with it and see what else there is to do and find the next steps. There is no way around it. Being, in the little bubble of like my own healing is totally a necessary space sometimes, but then actually going out into the world to see how it's going, is also important.
I love your example of just going out there and doing it and then meeting yourself where you're at in the moment and being able to like shift right there and then. So when somebody goes and does that, like, and they aren't able to catch themselves, for example, like, do you have a go-to method of, okay, how do I address what is coming up?
That's a really great question. So one thing that I will say, what's made it easy for me is that I am so deeply anchored in the truth of my awesomeness and who I am. Not in a conceited way, but like we are all children of God. And like the most toxic, sad thing about our culture is that like basically nobody realizes that. So it's this constant like grasping for false power and false confidence. And like, but I like deeply grok that I am a beautiful, magnificent being now. So having that anchor, the belief might come at me in the moment that's like still there on some layer, but like I'm living in the light that illuminates that shadow, that's there. So that's that, like having that foundational piece like really is the important piece, is finding the way to grapple with that over time. You create that anchor of your own light, by working with those shadows again and again and again. So I just say that just to make it clear, like this really isn't a once and done thing. This is a lifestyle. It's a lifestyle. It's a day out thing. But in the moment, the best thing you can do, and I say this like this is also important, is not to like disempower ourselves around that. In the moment, you always have a choice. And just to be aware, you're making a choice, you're having a practice habitual thought. Let me guess, the exact nature of that thought is a thought that you've had about a bajillion times prior to this, right? So it's a practice thought. And people can say, yeah, I know that intellectually, but deep down, I don't believe it. But even just to begin to shine the light on it is a start. So where a lot of people are stuck, whether it's in their dating life or whatever it might be, is they are misdiagnosing the problem. They think, oh, I actually am too fat. Oh, I actually am too old. Oh, there actually aren't that many wonderful single people in my city or my town. Like that's a lie too. The
Yeah.
abundance is amazing. And when your innards have shifted, honey, you will see the abundance of wonderful single people to interact with all the time, and you'll enjoy the journey until that perfect match one comes along, because it's not like this is an illusion. When people really think like, oh, it's my body, it's my age, it's my circumstances, it's that men suck, or all the lesbians around here are already taken, or whatever it might be. Whatever it might be, your first step is to accurately diagnose the problem, which is always your thoughts, your beliefs, your misperceptions. If you are having a problem that seems like it's, and this is not to deny systemic oppression, for God's sake. This is not to deny that racism is a real thing that continues to actually affect people. This is not to deny any of that. But let's put it this way, we're way more powerful than we give ourselves credit for, also in how we respond to things and stuff like that. This is not at all to diminish the toxicity and the various forms of oppression that are real in our world, but you need to first understand, like, this is an inner issue. So if you're telling yourself that the problem is something out there, and it's true that I'm not good enough, it's true that it's my age, it's true that I'm not lovable, it's true that I'm not interesting enough, it's true that that whatever this story is that's coming up, the first step is just to acknowledge, oh, I'm thinking that thought again. That's part of the beginnings of the awareness that brings it back to what is actually the cause of the situation a lot of the time, especially when it's a repeated pattern in your life, whether it's rejection or money problems that, like, you can't seem to hang on to the money that you earn, whatever it might be. If it's a pattern in your life, it's coming from inside you. It's a frequency issue, and you can shift that. And the first step is to catch it and say, oh, look at me having this thought again. And you might not be able to shift it on the deep subconscious level from coming up again. It might be hard to actually tell yourself the truth. But if you just say, I know on a certain level that this is not true, and you are relentless in catching it and saying it with it, which is why having something like a meditation practice can be very helpful, because it teaches you to actually, like, have that level of attentiveness to what's going on, but to actually catch it and not just default into the lie that you've been telling yourself without even snapping it up, just to, like, shine the light of, like, oh, I'm having that thought again, is a start. It's a big start. It's the most important start. And you just stick with that, and you begin to, like, actually say, oh, I see you. I see you, little gremlin. Of telling me that I'm not good enough. I see you again. I don't know how to, I still believe you, and that really hurts. But, like, I see that you're the problem, and I'm having a struggle with this. So you're actually, like, turning your light onto it. You're beginning to actually
Mhm.
recognize the actual problem, because the problem is not out there. If you're experiencing repeated rejection or repeated struggles, of a similar pattern in your life, it's not out there. You can shift it. Like I was telling with my story earlier on, the hot guy's helping me into the tree and making my friend feel completely rejected. That used to be my experience. The only thing that has changed is not my body. And I've continued to get older, et cetera, et cetera. But, like,
Yeah,
the thing that's changed has been me inside, not changing myself fundamentally, but allowing myself to love myself and to know my worthiness without it being about changing my outer stuff.
absolutely. And I can definitely relate to the whole like feeling of your body and everything like that because I just gave birth and I gained so much weight. And I remember like my first pregnancy, I shamed my body the entire way through my pregnancy. It was bad. And prior to that, I worked out at least 5 times a week. So I had my muscles, I was skinny, I had like the perfect like Instagram proportions to show off on Instagram, right? And all of a sudden I got pregnant and gained like 70 pounds. And here I am reading online that the normal amount of weight gain is like 30 pounds. So I'm thinking like, oh my God, I'm a monstrosity. Nobody's going to love me because look at me, I gained all this weight. And it was like how I felt internally about myself. But where do these stories come from? And now, my second pregnancy, because of all the healing work that was done, my second pregnancy, I didn't even gain as much. And I think all just being in a space of like a healthy mental space, healthy emotional space, I wasn't breaking out in acne anymore. My first pregnancy, acne, like body acne, back acne, face acne. I was swollen, and your body responds to your own negativity. So in this shift with my second pregnancy, I was just super zen. I was like, I love my body. I am calm. I'm collected. I'm going to treat myself well. And this time I said, I'm going to treat myself well. And I ate better things. Lo and behold, no acne, like very, very, very little acne, but no body acne at all, no swelling. I stayed in the normal, healthy weight gain range. And even postpartum, I still have the weight, but I was telling my friend, I was like, I feel confident. Like I walk out and I feel confident. And yet I'm maybe like 20, 30 pounds heavier than my original weight pre pregnancy. And it wasn't about the weight, it was the inner the inner work, how you feel about yourself. What stories are you telling yourself? And where do these stories even come from? Because my stories didn't come from me. It came from society and watching too much Instagram of what societal beauty standards are. And I made myself feel bad about that. Right. So now I'm like, oh my God, I'm wonderful. My husband still loves me. Right. He loves me. I love myself. The world still loves and accepts me. But where did that mentality come from that made me feel rejected in the first place?
Totally. I love that you said that because we cannot get rid of what we judge. When we are judging ourselves for being a certain way, that's not going to go away. And you healed your judgment of that. And then naturally, you didn't have the same physical manifestations during your second pregnancy. That's so beautiful. And it truly like it, like I think 40 pounds heavier than I was now when I was like 25 at my thinnest.
Yeah.
Got treated like shit still like by me. I remember like being in Hawaii and I was like really like quite a lot thinner and when I was in Hawaii for several months in my 20s. And I remember like riding my bike. I was like the only person in Honolulu with a bicycle. And I remember riding my bike down the street and these dudes yell out of their truck, fat bitch. And I'm like, wow. And I mean, like, I get no disrespect these days. I get no
Yeah.
such disrespect. People will stop me to tell me how beautiful I am and ask me how I look so fit. I'm not even shitting.
Oh.
It's so funny and it's totally a vibe. I'm not actually more muscularly toned than I ever
Yeah.
was at this weight. And it's crazy. And here's another cool thing that happened with weight stuff. I didn't have any, so I live in the Pacific Northwest and I'm very sensitive to the lack of sunlight. And this winter I had zero like mood effect from it. And I was like, damn, like even that's better now. That's amazing. Like that's a really cool effect. Also, having a lot of love in your life is like sunshine. So I have to say that that has helped as well. Like it's just this incredible, like it's not just like dating, it's my entire social world has bloomed in the last few years in a way that is just it it's unprecedented. It's completely reflective of my inner commitment to loving myself no matter what, and really letting go of what other people think, and like really holding a high standard. But I still, even though I didn't have winter depression, I still had the physical drop in vitality starting around November, and I gained almost 20 pounds from eating too much sugar. And I was like, okay, so this is still here. That's interesting. But I felt so blessed by it actually,
Yeah.
because I got to see how it showed me, it gave me the opportunity to see how much I had actually unhooked body image and worthiness and stuff like that. I got to experience, like, I still feel as hot as I felt 20 pounds ago. And I
Wow.
experience that I am as attractive as I was 20 pounds ago. One of my best friends, I'm sitting with her, Alana, I love that woman so much. We were
Yes.
sitting together a couple months ago and I'm like, girl, I've gained so much weight this winter. Like it's hard on my body. It feels heavy. Like I want to lose it because I don't like the way it feels. Like I can feel it in my knees after a really long hike or whatever. And she's like, have you gained weight? She's like, I've never even thought of you as overweight, like, which is so contradictory to like my mental thing and what a lot of other people like. My entire field reflects differently. There are plenty of people who, if I were in a different frequency in myself, would completely reflect back to me their own reflective, like unworthiness around body stuff and this sort of thing. But my experience of it is so different. So I'm so glad for the weight I gained this winter because it showed me that yeah, I still have body stuff that I'm working through. Like why did I eat so much sugar? Like how did I go down that thing? So that's been something I've been like working out. There's always new layers of stuff to clear, but I got to see that like body image and worthiness are completely disconnected now. Like
Yes.
that by itself, holy shit, that's been amazing to be like, yeah, that's actually disconnected. That's a beautiful thing. And so there's a lot less judgment now. It's just like there's more of a curiosity, but I'm still working on it. There are layers of just like, being like, why rice last night when I wasn't hungry, but like, so like looking at like the judgment that comes up around that and like, what are the stories around it? And what are the stories around this, like the mild discomfort that I feel with the extra weight I've been carrying this winter is um is not proportional to the amount of emotional like story around it. So that's the thing I'm working through, but like I totally know that that's going to be handled because I have the tools now. I know how to work with the things that are coming up. And just like once you get anchored at a certain frequency of your own light, everything else gets easier. Doing the next layers of work gets easier. Like the whole journey of ongoing healing and up leveling actually just is like, I wouldn't trade the quote problems of my current era for, I mean, anything else in the past. Like, just everything does get easier. You get much more subtle awarenesses of energetic snafus and things like that, because there's just not that much else to pay attention to. It's like you
Yeah.
get to look at little refinements of things to do because there's not big problems anymore, you know.
And I love your example that, we always keep growing, but because you have the tools and it gets easier, then you reach a point in your life where now you can focus on really expanding, really just living your life and not having to maintain the stories that come up and maintain the triggers that are brought up. All of a sudden, it's like your focus completely shifts. But the beginning of the work is, okay, what are the little exercises that I can do to help myself shift? Because once you build that muscle of like, oh, problem solving skill, problem solving skill, all of a sudden it just like you hit a point that you hit so beautifully, and I sense it in your energy. And I told you, oh my God, like I feel the sense of just sexiness just vibrating off of your body without you even trying, right? Once you hit that point in life, in any aspect we can speak to, now you can really just focus on play, you can focus on expansion, you can focus on trying new things. So that's the whole like healing slash manifestation, and all of a sudden life is magical.
Totally, totally. It's hardest at the beginning because that's where like it's really hard to unravel like how those limiting beliefs about ourselves stay stuck. And it really like I couldn't have done it without coaching support. I didn't have the skills and I needed the support standing by me to give me the skills. I needed the help with the accountability because when you don't love yourself and are not enjoying the journey, it's hard to even know you're getting somewhere. And when you don't know if you're actually getting somewhere, it's hard to stick with a particular practice, you know.
Yeah.
Like at this point, you know, I have people that I work with for like refinements or learning new tools and new skills and things like that, but it really does get easier. It doesn't stay hard. That's the thing that I'm, if I could like throw that back to my like 19-year-old self and say it gets easier and easier, just like I, you know, I was such like a very emotionally tormented, unhappy young person. I looked like I was having more fun than everybody else, but I was not inside.
Yeah.
And but I knew that if I just fought my face off to get happy, that there was a way. I didn't know that I would actually get there. Many times I was like, damn, this is taking forever. But like, you know, it does get easier, it does get lighter, you continue to expand, and it's, you know, frequency is a good word for it. Like your frequency goes up, it's just like, yeah, the whole journey becomes fun. That's why I'm just shocked to be like, God, I'm loving being single. And just this part of the like part of me like kind of gets even wanting to attach to the moment and like not wanting to let it go. And it's just like, it's fine, Carlita. Like, you don't have to hang on to
Yes.
every moment. It's going to be fine. But like to be actually just enjoying this phase so much is like not something that I ever would have anticipated before. But it's not about getting out of my life as it is anymore, you know? Like so many people are just like, just get me the girlfriend or the boyfriend or get me my marriage partner or whatever. And it is not about just getting out of this annoying, persistent circumstance anymore. Like you are really enjoying the ride. The
Yes.
ride is so good. It's just, it's a completely different experience. And so it's much easier not to be attached to outcomes. It's much easier to be in surrender, which is really where people block manifestation, right?
I love that. And as we're wrapping up, I know you have a free gift for the audience to help them on this journey. I'm sure everyone's just absorbing this like I am. Ah, such juicy information.
You. Well, I'm offering something that like anybody who's already been in my sphere has probably heard this talk because at this point it's a year and a half old. It's really popular. It's the gateway to healthy love. And it's basically about kind of the self-love thing and like what how to create things and how even a challenging circumstance can be like a gift for you in these certain ways. But I feel like enough people have heard that. I was like, what else can I do for like Nikki's audience that might be something different? And so I'm offering like quickie, like, let's get on there and just like do a laser session. I forget what I said. It was something about like just illuminating like the biggest illusion that that is keeping you down. So I love to connect with people, keeps me jazzed in my spaces, is not a sales call. If people wanted to learn more about working with me, that's cool. But like, I just want to like get on the phone with people for a brief call, just do a laser session and be like, this is your bullshit. Like, let's start to unravel this and, you know, just really give somebody like a quick plan for some steps to take. I just would love to offer that to people who sign up for it. Limited time, so sign up for it now. And if you like the calendar runs out of space or whatever, you can email me. But get on my email list, and then you get my whenever you sign up for the talk, and then you actually have my email address to reply to. So yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Karlita, for being here, for sharing your wisdom. I will have the links below the video. And with that said, thank you everyone for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you so much, Nikki.
Thank you.